Very good morning to you. Thanks so much indeed for joining us. So welcome to the program. I'm Peter Ndoro and you're watching Health Talk. And coming up on the program today, we have quite a lot to look forward to, actually. I'm going to tell you, it's a full program. And coming up, we'll be talking at fetal alcohol syndrome and alcohol consumption during pregnancy and the impact of COVID-19. Then we speak to the head of the clinical unit of medical genetics and genetic counseling at Stellenbosch University about fetal alcohol syndrome and maternal genetics influencing alcohol's adverse impact on developing fetuses and how to manage children living with the fetal alcohol syndrome. We also speak to a non-alcoholic board member of Alcoholic Anonymous South Africa about the addictive power of alcohol and how Alcohol Anonymous assists women who drink heavily during pregnancy. A little later, general practitioner talks to us and gives us advice about COVID-19 patients and some of the issues that they're dealing with. And they've been resorting to social media where they don't often get the best advice. So we'll be catching up with that doctor a little bit later on. But first, let's catch up with our senior producer, Zama Buthelezi, who'll take us through the latest COVID-19 statistics. So very good morning to you, Zama.
A very good morning to you, Peter, and viewers. Good news, South Africa is now number 8th worst affected country globally in terms of coronavirus cases. At number 1 is the United States, recording more than 4.1 million infections. At number 2 is India at more than 4.1 million infections. Brazil at number 3 with more than 4.1 million infections. Number 4 is Russia at more than 1 million infections. And Peru at number 5 with more than 690 infections. Colombia at number 7 with more than 640,000 infections. And Mexico also at number 7 at 640,000, overtaking South Africa now at number 8. In the African continent, South Africa is leading in infections, having passed the 600,000 mark. Let's take a look at the national COVID-19 statistics. More than 3.8 million tests have been processed in South Africa to date. Since the beginning of the pandemic, more than 640,000 people have tested positive. But great news, our recoveries now stand at more than 570,000, which translates to a recovery rate of more than 88%. Regrettably, more than 15,000 people have died. We extend our condolences to the loved ones of the departed and thank the health workers that treated the deceased patients. Looking at the infections in the provinces, 4 of the 9 provinces continue to report the highest numbers of infections, and these are provinces with big metros. Gauteng is still the epicenter of this pandemic, with Soweto, one of its biggest townships, leading with infection numbers. Let's take a look at these numbers. More than 214,000 people have tested positive in Gauteng. More than 115,000 people have tested positive in KwaZulu-Natal. More than 107,000 people have tested positive in the Western Cape. More than 87,000 people have tested positive in the Eastern Cape. The World Health Organization has commended South Africa for its spirited fight against COVID-19. Speaking in Geneva, Switzerland this week, WHO officials updated progress made by the scientists and health experts sent to South Africa to assist. Let's listen to their update.
South Africa is doing its best. We know it's very, very complicated. But it's doing its best, and we're very glad to partner and send our colleagues there to work with. And it's an honor for us to support any country. And with the current trend, we hope to further push it to a decline and further control the pandemic. But I would like to use this opportunity to thank the leadership of the President Ramaphosa, not only in South Africa, but in the whole continent, by helping to develop the continental strategy, one continental strategy, and helping the continent to move as one.
While it looks like the following provinces are recording the lowest numbers compared to provinces with big metros, the rate of infection is picking up. Let's take a look at where they are. More than 40,000 people have tested positive in the Free State. More than 26,000 people have tested positive in the Northwest. More than 25,000 people have tested positive in Mpumalanga. More than 13,000 people have tested positive in Limpopo. More than 12,000 people have tested positive in the Northern Cape. Well, we are on the third week of level 2 regulations, and we reiterate the even greater vigilance and even greater care as more sectors of the economy are now opened and children are back at school. Remember to regularly wash our hands with soap and use sanitizers containing 70% alcohol content. We must all continue to wear a cloth mask that covers our nose and mouth every time we leave our homes. We must continue to practice social distancing, ensure proper ventilation indoors, especially as more people are back at work. We must continue to limit our travel to only that which is absolutely necessary. If you believe there is a chance you may be infected with the virus, call ahead to seek medical help from your healthcare provider or use the public hotline 0800 029 999 and alert them to your symptoms. Thank you so much, and back to you, Peter.
Thank you, Zama. Now you can run and find your mask.
Definitely.
Thanks so much. All right, so that's Zama giving us those statistics. But remember that as we observe and report on the COVID-19 cases, these numbers can change, and sometimes significantly, as you've been finding out in recent weeks for sure. Remember, you can also be part of the program, and we'll be asking our guests some questions, and you can post some questions as well that you might have on your mind, or maybe even just share your thoughts about some of the things that you're hearing and that we're discussing. The number to call if you want to share your thoughts is Johannesburg 011 714 5861 or 5877. That's Johannesburg 011 714 5861 or 5877. Give us a call. Now, according to the WHO, the World Health Organization, South Africa has some of the heaviest drinkers in the world. The country also has the highest prevalence of fetal alcohol syndrome in the world. And this is a condition that arises when a mother consumes alcohol during her pregnancy. And while alcohol use during pregnancy is a leading cause worldwide for preventable birth defects and developmental disabilities in children, the extent to which the South African government has responded to the high fetal alcohol syndrome prevalence at policy level is unclear, especially at local level. Now, the question we're asking you today is enough being done to educate and raise awareness about the dangers of consuming alcohol during pregnancy in South Africa and the impact that it might have, especially during a pandemic such as COVID-19? Send us your voice notes or your video messages to our WhatsApp number, and that's 065 862 4548. That number again, 065 862 4548. Try and keep your messages under 30 seconds so that we can share as many of those as possible. You can also share your thoughts with us on social media, and you can use our Twitter handle, which is at SABC Health Talk, or you can put hashtag SABC Health Talk. Or you can also land on our Facebook page, and that's also called SABC Health Talk. All right, so a lot to unpack. Fetal alcohol syndrome, it's a big issue, and we need to unpack it so that we can educate each other. Health Talk continues right after this. Stay with us.
84 years, the SABC has been at the forefront of broadcast radio and television, bringing joy and happiness to the homes of many while continually redefining South Africa's media landscape. We do not speak with one voice. We let every voice in our nation find expression in language and in culture. We do not just bring the news, we provide content that is independent and impartial. We do not just broadcast sport, but we do it for the love of the game.
This is as to me.
We do not just entertain, we deliver local content, representing Mzansi for sure. We empower you with educational content that reminds you where you belong. With 19 radio stations and 5 TV channels, SABC 1, 2, 3 Education and SABC News Channel, we ensure that everyone in our nation is informed, educated and entertained. All the while knowing that at 84, there's still much more yet to come. Hashtag 84 years of SABC.
The much talked about oversight inspection of the Beitbridge border fence.
We're expecting a fence that is 2.2 meters up high, but we are seeing a fence that is 1.8 meters high. As you can see, it's already rusting as compared to a fence that was put in by March.
There is no doubt that this fence is a total sham. It is not fit for purpose, and the South African taxpayers have been robbed.
Welcome back. You're still watching Health Talk. Now, Kate, not her real name, this is to protect her identity, drank through 2 pregnancies, aware of the dangers but unable to do anything about it. Whilst her children were spared from fetal alcohol syndrome, they were affected in other ways. And Nedma was indulging unaware of the dangers of drinking alcohol whilst pregnant. Let's take a listen.
Could you just kindly tell us about your drinking experience? Were you a heavy drinker or were you an occasional drinker, and when did you start drinking?
By the time that I was the age of 30, I had progressed to an habitual drinker, basically someone who drinks on a daily basis, not getting intoxicated every day, but literally drinking a couple of glasses of wine a day. And what I did notice was that, once we get to a certain level, we never go backwards. We only move forwards. In other words, our disease is progressive.
Was your child affected due to your drinking, or was she spared from getting alcohol fetal syndrome?
Both of my children were born with, one had ADD and the other one had ADHD. The first one, probably slightly less symptoms, simply because of where my alcoholism had progressed to. But definitely learning disabilities, and I think that's what we talk about, the fetal alcohol disorders. Those when I had a look at the obvious facts, although there's no complete medical facts relating the two, to this day I will never know that answers. In a sense, my alcoholism robbed my children of a large deal of their childhood. It destroyed my relationship with them. And, for many years, I was not even present in their life. And that is also simply because of the fact that I didn't take this disease of alcoholism seriously.
Kindly tell us about the program that you went into. How did you come about being part of FastFact?
This program, FastFact, it helped me because now I know deeper than before. Before I was drinking, that how is the danger of drinking, especially while you are pregnant. But now I know.
What would your words of encouragement be to such a person who is drinking while expecting?
The mothers who are still pregnant and the mothers who are still having newborn babies, that they rather stop at all drinking alcohol. In order for them to have a healthy babies, they must stop drinking alcohol, because alcohol is very dangerous, can damage your child, especially the mind of a baby. It's very dangerous because those, especially the early pregnancy, drinking whilst in an early stage of pregnancy.
Now, Fast Facts is an NGO which aims to educate the general public on the effects of alcohol consumption during pregnancy on unborn babies, as well as the influence that people have with fast have on each individual in particular and the broader community in general. Well, to talk to us in detail about the organisation and the work that they do, I'm now joined by Nonsidiso Nzimando, who's a social worker at Fast Facts. Thanks so much indeed for joining us, and welcome to the programme.
Thank you, Peter. Good morning, and a very good morning to the viewers at home.
All right, tell us about Fast Facts. What do you do? What do you try and help with?
Okay, so Fast Facts is an NGO that aims specifically at preventing fetal alcohol syndrome. So we have programs that will help us achieve our goal, which is to prevent fetal alcohol syndrome. The first and the main program that we have it's called Pregnant Women Mentoring Program. What we do is we recruit pregnant women who are currently consuming alcohol and drugs, or just mainly alcohol. And then we empower them, we educate them, we counsel them, and we just help them holistically to be in a position where they can sustain the decision of maintaining sobriety. The other program that we have is also Train the Trainer. So as I'm talking to you now, Peter, you learning about fetal alcohol syndrome, and someone else is learning. So what we basically do is just run awareness campaigns in collaboration with other NGOs and other stakeholders.
All right. So I just wonder, as you go out there into the communities, do you get a sense that women are aware about fetal alcohol syndrome and also the dangers of drinking during pregnancy?
I'm so happy that you are addressing that question. Most people and most pregnant women are actually clueless about fetal alcohol syndrome. I've been in this program for 3 years now, and I could say that 90% of the women that I came across and that I've worked with who were consuming alcohol whilst pregnant had no idea what fetal alcohol syndrome is. And this is just, it goes as far as to actually health workers that have been engaging with it and that have trained on fetal alcohol syndrome. They are professionals. They are equipped in other spheres, but when it comes to fetal alcohol syndrome, it's just something that people have no clue about. And as a result, when they go to the clinics, what they get there is that they are told not to consume alcohol during pregnancy, but there's actually no explanation as to why they shouldn't. And when we engage with them now, they actually get the information, and it's always just so eye-opening for them to realize that the dangers that they are putting their unborn babies in.
All right, and I suppose it's never too late to start getting advice, getting treatment, and getting help, and finding people like you.
Yes, most definitely, it is never too late. For the pregnant women who are at home, or women, ladies who are still planning to to have babies, it is wise not to drink alcohol. If you already were consuming alcohol and maybe you are halfway your pregnancy, it is not too late. You can actually stop now without even being judgmental. We want the women to understand that we know that there are underlying issues that are causing them to consume alcohol. They do not just decide randomly that they want to damage their baby's brain. And as the health workers, we are here to support them, to help them deal with all the issues that are causing them to actually want to consume alcohol during pregnancy.
Are there certain areas, provinces that see a higher incidence of fetal alcohol syndrome in South Africa?
I wouldn't know as to South Africa, but I know, and I don't want to talk, and I want to, if I don't have research-based evidence,
Okay.
But currently we are working, I'm from the office in Eastern Cape, which is in East London, and there was research done by Rhodes University, and the findings were that some of the areas had high alcohol consumption by the pregnant women, and we are currently providing intervention in those specific areas in the municipality.
Do these interventions, these programs work? Are you seeing definite improvements and recoveries?
I'm so happy that you are really just tackling the real questions. With the pregnant women that I have worked with in this 3 years, we've had 90%, we've achieved 90% sobriety of the women that we have been working with in all those 3 years. So during the pregnancy, and during our intervention, we have noticed, and research has also proven that we get more than 90% sobriety. I think basically it just shows how much lack of information can actually affect us, because as soon as the women understand the consequences, they really, really try to stop consuming alcohol.
All right. And then how can people get hold of you?
They can go to our website. It's www.fastfacts.org.za, and we are also available on Facebook. They must search for Fast Facts. Yeah, that's about it.
All right, that's fantastic. So I know that you have one important tradition that you do. Tell us about it, and then let's see it.
Yes, we have a bell ringing ceremony because of today. I'm not going to go deep into details about it, but 9 minutes past 9 on the 9th of the 9th month, we ring a bell. This we do in remembrance of our most vulnerable unborn children. And it is also our way to motivate pregnant women to maintain sobriety. So I'm going to ring a bell.
Non-Cities, thank you so much indeed. Please keep up the good work. Thank you so much indeed for your time.
Thank you so much, Peter.
All right, that's Non-Cities Nzimande, who's a social worker at Fast Facts, joining us there. All right, now, the question that we're asking you today is enough being done, in your view, to educate and raise awareness about the dangers of consuming alcohol during pregnancy in South Africa and the impact of COVID-19? Please send us your voice notes or video call us on 065-862-4548. And you can also share your thoughts with us via social media at SABC Health Talk. After the break, we speak to the head of the clinical unit of medical genetics and genetic counselling at Stellenbosch University. Stay with us for that.
First, I want to salute the workers, the frontline workers, who are from time to time facing serious challenges.
Our sincere condolences to those workers in private and public who lost their lives in the line of duty.
COVID-19 came, and all of a sudden in our country we realized who are the heroes and heroines of our country.
To the government, they must do what is right. They must provide and protect and defend the frontline workers.
Welcome back. You're still watching Health Talk. Now, the Foundation for Alcohol-Related Research found that one of the biggest causes of fetal alcohol syndrome in South Africa is the consumption of beer. And quite often, most women don't realize that they're expecting within the first few weeks.
Restrict the use of alcohol, especially in women who are pregnant. We should not be selling alcohol at all to women who are pregnant and to women who intend falling pregnant. So it's very important that as a community we preach this, we preach it at churches, we preach it at school.
You mustn't drink while you're pregnant because you can harm your baby and yourself.
We should be educated, well educated about the unborn babies, so that when we give birth we should know what will going to harm the children.
Pregnant ladies, they mustn't drink because they can harm their babies.
Because 80% of pregnancies in South Africa are still unplanned. So women might only confirm their pregnancies when they're 8 or 12 or 16 weeks pregnant or even later, and then they continue drinking alcohol during this period and then potentially harming their baby.
Prevention and treatment programs for alcoholic women could dramatically reduce the incidence of fetal alcohol syndrome. The damages caused by FAS is permanent, but it's 100% preventable. And to talk to us about medical genetics and how to manage a child living with fetal alcohol syndrome, we're now joined by the head of the clinical unit of medical genetics and genetic counselling at Stellenbosch University, Professor Michael Irwin. Thanks so much indeed for joining us, Prof. Welcome to the programme.
Thank you for having me, and hello to the listeners.
All right.
Viewers.
So let's start with the condition itself. Do we know how and why it manifests in the way that it does?
Look, certainly alcohol is a key feature in it. I think that it's a bit more complex. The actual pathway to how that causes harm is still not completely understood, I would say. Alcohol and drinking alcohol and binge drinking in particular is the major risk factor, though.
All right.
How does it cause the features of FAS? So I think you mentioned fetal alcohol syndrome. It should also perhaps just be mentioned that fetal alcohol syndrome is part of a broader spectrum, which we call the fetal alcohol spectrum disorder, that you might have mentioned already. So it may present with visibly apparent features that we would call syndromic, or it may present just with neurological or behavioral problems without any external sort of physical manifestation.
And I suppose it's different for different women, just as somebody might need 6 drinks to get drunk, another person 1. The amount of alcohol that causes this syndrome is not known.
Correct, yeah. So I think it isn't known in any specific individual. We think certainly high regular drinking and regular binge drinking would be the major risk factor. But women people differ in many ways. Some may metabolize alcohol more rapidly and perhaps be at lower risk. We don't know exactly. some women who are smaller or who have nutritional kind of issues, or perhaps are doing other things that increase risk, like smoking. So there are certain other kind of risk factors that seem to play a part. So yes, we can't really say in any one particular individual what would be a safe level of drinking, which is why the consensus is no drinking in pregnancy is safe.
All right, so what do we do in terms of diagnosing? Is it something that is easy to diagnose? Take us through that process. Child is born, and what do we know?
And actually, it's quite a difficult condition to diagnose. And I think that's one reason that it took a long time for it to be recognized. It was only actually first sort of described in the late 1960s, early 1970s, that it caused that drinking alcohol was actually harmful and that the syndromic kind of appearance was recognized. What we would do if we're seeing an individual where there's for example, they may present, actually it's quite uncommon to present at the time of birth unless the mother has been drinking heavily and there's a particular suspicion around that. It may be that it's a child who has a developmental problem at a bit of a later age. And basically, alcohol causes a range of different effects. It does. So drinking in the first trimester of pregnancy in particular is associated with the physical kind of features. So that would be, for example, particular facial features that we would look for. And these are quite minor features. For example, a smooth upper lip and a thin vermilion border of the upper lip and relatively slightly smaller eyes than that we would actually measure out. So we would look at those physical features, and one needs to realize that these are actually potentially normal features in the population. So there isn't any one particular feature, and there isn't a particular kind of blood test that will identify it. So it's what we call a clinical diagnosis. One looks at the facial features, one looks at the growth, because it is fetal alcohol syndrome is associated with reduced general growth of the head and brain, but also of the body in general. And then we look at the sort of developmental profile. And so it's what we would think of as a multidisciplinary assessment. And so we in medical genetics will assess for the facial features and what we call dysmorphic, or just potentially slightly unusual appearance features that give clues. A neurodevelopmental pediatrician might ideally would do the neurodevelopmental assessment. The growth we would do, and then obviously getting an accurate history of alcohol consumption is really important. So those are the different components that go into making a diagnosis, and one should ideally have evidence in each of those categories: facial appearance, growth, and neurodevelopmental difficulties with a particular profile, although not absolutely specific, plus risky drinking, or at least drinking in pregnancy. And that would lead us then to making a diagnosis of fetal alcohol syndrome, or potentially of something, what we would think of as a lesser condition in the spectrum, but still with implications.
All right, you talk about spectrum, and I guess there's a spectrum in terms of how severe or mild the syndrome might present in each child. Talk to us a little bit about treatment, or is it management of the condition?
Yeah, I think it's fair to say probably management often more than actual treatment, in the sense of medications. So I think a lot of it would be around assessment of abilities and disabilities, and trying to correct anything that's identified, depending on how early one identifies the condition or the risk. There is this sort of option of early intervention programs to stimulate development, and so children with fetal alcohol syndrome do benefit from stimulation within an environment that is quite structured, is the general consensus. So that would be the approach. There are potential specific health issues, other birth defects, heart defects, things like that can sometimes be part of it. So we do a full health screening, check vision, hearing, all of these things are sometimes involved. And so I think correcting all of those aspects actually improves the final outcome in a child. And then obviously what's also really important is paying attention to the mum or the parents' drinking behavior, trying to work with that, because they in the end have the key role in bringing up the child. And if they stop risky drinking, that can make a huge difference to how they parent their child. So those would be some of the elements that we think about.
Okay, Professor Michael Urban, we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you very much indeed for giving us your time and sharing your thoughts.
Great pleasure. Thank you.
All right, that's Professor Michael Urban, who's the head of the clinical unit at Medical Genetics and Genetic Counselling at Stellenbosch University. A reminder of our question of the day that we ask, is there enough being done to educate and raise awareness about the dangers of consuming alcohol during pregnancy in South Africa and the impact of COVID-19? Send us your voice notes and video call us on 065 862 4548, and you can also share your thoughts with us on social media at SABC Health Talk. After the break, we speak to the non-alcoholic board member of Alcoholics Anonymous South Africa.
Hello, Rodney.
Hi, Kutleko.
Where are you?
I'm just driving to work.
Tell me about what it is that you do for a living.
I manage hospitals in the private sector.
You guys are out there saving lives, but I want to talk a little bit about how you've saved money with insurance.
I spoke to a consultant by the name of Shane Peterson. Cross-examined him a few times. I was shocked at the fact that I was going to be saving 435 Rand on my policy. Basically, Chencha Dadeng.
SMS saved 44211 or call 08 600 60,000 and Chencha Dadeng.
We live in a new high-tech environment. Because of the technology, some of the world's wealthiest people are tech entrepreneurs. Tech is how we play and how we work. For your tech conversation, join me, Phumelele Zondi, on Network every Sunday at 8:30 p.m.
Welcome back. You're watching Health Talk, and today we're focusing on fetal alcohol syndrome. And when it comes to a matter such as FAS, Alcoholics Anonymous, or AA is, as it's more commonly known, focuses on the woman who struggles to control her drinking even when she knows of the dangers to the unborn child. To help us understand how AA can assist these women, we're now joined by board member of AA South Africa, Dr. Varoshni Nadesan. In fact, we're busy trying to get hold of her and try and get a sense of how our women who are carrying children can be assisted. I know that there's a lot of conversations that happen about how much is too much. Some have suggested that 1 glass a day is much better than binging. Well, we heard earlier on that binging certainly is a problem, but I think the best advice during your pregnancy is not to drink at all, because it's not clear how much alcohol and with each particular individual will cause problems. So if you're pregnant, if you think you might be pregnant or you're trying to get pregnant, alcohol is definitely something that you want to make sure you stay away from. And sadly, we've also been hearing that not everybody is getting the advice that they need. They'll go to the clinics, but are not fully explained to why they should stop drinking. So if you're watching this program, if you've got a friend who's pregnant, make sure that they're aware. All right, let's join Dr. Varoshni Nadesan, who will talk to us a little bit about AA and how they can help. Thanks so much indeed for joining us. Welcome to the program, Dr. Nadesan. Drinking during pregnancy, for some it's easy to just stop. But I suppose those that are alcoholic, this really becomes a challenge.
Yes, good morning, Peter, and good morning to the viewers. We must understand that fetal alcohol syndrome is a societal issue. For too long now, it's been kept a secret, it's been kept a stigma, and we've developed prejudices and stereotypes against mothers and against the victim, who is the child of fetal alcohol syndrome. But ultimately, we believe that people can change, and people can change in behaviors and attitudes. At Alcoholics Anonymous, we offer support. We have established and recognized support groups internationally. In South Africa alone, we have over 350 meetings and groups where mothers can attend. You have heard Kate's story and Andile's story a little earlier. And if a person honestly cannot quit alcohol entirely, or when drinking has taken over the person's life, then you're probably an alcoholic and you would need to seek support.
All right, take us through the Alcoholics Anonymous process so that our viewers can get a sense of how it assists and how it helps.
Yes, so Alcoholics Anonymous offers a 12-step program which takes the person through the recognition and understanding of how alcohol has actually impacted on his or her life. In the case of a mother who is an alcoholic, there's several support groups we offer for all, males and females, in fact. We offer the program of sponsorship, where you have an experienced alcoholic, someone who has had many, many years in successful recovery and sobriety, that would support, in this case, the alcoholic mother. We also have groups and support groups that people may attend, and particularly during the COVID, we've actually extended this to online support groups via various social media platforms. In addition to that, you may have heard of Al-Anon family groups, and this is for the child of the alcoholic, particularly here if we're talking about the child who's presenting with fetal alcohol syndrome and the behaviors. And this child can actually attend groups of Al-Anon or Al-Ateen, which is for the family of the alcoholic. So Alcoholics Anonymous is actually a fellowship of persons who will support the alcoholic mother. Ultimately, research and medical science suggests that women should not drink any amount of alcohol during her pregnancy. And any amount can actually affect a person's, the developing fetus, as you've heard the doctor a little while ago as well. So the strategies that actually need to be undertaken to mitigate these concerns actually include a cross-disciplinary initiative where we provide evidence-based clinical practices to prevent fetal alcohol syndrome. And we need to obviously promote proper treatment and support services to both the mother and to the child.
Do you think that there's enough education generally, about the dangers of drinking during pregnancy? I'm getting a sense that not many people are able to make the connection with drinking and the unborn child.
You are so correct, Peter. As I said earlier, it's always been kept as a stigma. And so therefore, even when information has been extended to the alcoholic mother or to the potential alcoholic mother, such information is actually treated with disdain. Now, we have to look at what possibly causes a pregnant woman to drink. And as you've heard, sometimes a person is unaware that they are pregnant at the time, and so they have been taking to alcohol. One hesitates to speculate that the mother would actually intentionally harm her fetus. If anything, a mother would protect her fetus. But mothers may receive incorrect information, possibly from health professionals or from any other persons, from her peers. There might be peer pressure within their homes or their own social circles. There might be peer pressure or pressure from partners to drink. Or maybe alcohol is used to manage stress as a means of self-medication. So this lack of information or this incorrect information could be attributed to this high level, extremely high level of fetal alcohol syndrome in the world. And as you've heard, South Africa has the highest fetal alcohol syndrome in the country in the world itself.
All right, Dr. Nadesa, we've got a caller on the line from the Western Cape. I think it's Vivian. Is it Vanessa? Hello, Vanessa.
No, it's Vivian.
Vivian. Hello,
yes.
Vivian. You
Hi.
want to share your thoughts with us?
Peter, thank you for giving me time to speak. I run an information centre here in Cape Town. I have two daughters that have fetal alcohol syndrome. They were both foster children. One is now 29 and the other is 28, still living at home with me. I had many, many problems, especially with the younger one. So I have written a book which is in most libraries in the Western Cape. It's called Our Journey with Tisha. So people can get it if they need help. It's got all handy hints for teachers, social workers, and caregivers of children. And I'm also very proud to say that my family and I were the ones who started International FAS Day here in South Africa. We started it in Cape Town listening to the Carillon of Bells with just a handful of friends. And from there, it's grown into what it is today.
All right, Vivian, thank you so much indeed. And I'm glad that your book is out there. That's another resource that people can share. All right, Dr. Nadesan, I guess COVID-19 has come with its own complications as well. Has it something that you have seen that's compounded the problem in any way?
Well, one cannot ignore the relationship between COVID-19 and the effects and the various information that has been going around, particularly if one has to look at government's initiative to actually regulate behaviors, particularly to stop the spread of COVID-19. And here we're talking about government's initiatives, for instance, at the various levels in South Africa, in terms of banning alcohol usage, etc. There have been various statistics and studies that have been conducted. One hesitates to pass a judgment on this. But I think there has been, an outreach, or persons have been calling for support from Alcoholics Anonymous during this lockdown, particularly during this COVID lockdown as well.
All right, Dr. Nadesan, we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you very much indeed for joining us on the program today.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Peter.
All right, that's Dr. Varoshni Nadesan, who's a board member at Alcoholics Anonymous South Africa, where you can get help if you have a problem with alcohol and perhaps you've got children, you're pregnant or thinking about getting pregnant. Get assistance, get help, because fetal alcohol syndrome is 100% preventable. After the break, we speak to a general practitioner who joins us to give us advice on COVID-19, because a lot of us have been resorting to social media to get advice, and sometimes it's not the best. Stay with us.
First, I want to salute the workers, the frontline workers, who are from time to time facing serious challenges.
Our sincere condolences to those workers in private and public who lost their lives in the line of duty.
COVID-19 came, and all of a sudden in our country we realized who are the heroes and heroines of our country.
To the government, they must do what is right. They must provide and protect and defend the frontline workers.
The much talked about oversight inspection of the Beitbridge border fence.
We're expecting a fence that is 2.2 meters up high, but we are seeing a fence that is 1.8 meters high. As you can see, it's already rusting as compared to a fence that was put in by March.
There is no doubt that this fence is a total sham. It is not fit for purpose, and the South African taxpayers have been robbed.
The African Union condemned attacks against humanitarian and aid workers, saying the attacks violate international norms.
Before coronavirus, the African Union had a noble aim for 2020, silencing guns across the continent.
When we balance fighting COVID and silence the guns, we will be focused on achieving strategic mandates of our union.
The African Union is worried about the increasing violent extremism and terrorism, despite it joining the United Nations to call for ceasefires in the face of the pandemic.
All right, welcome back. We're starting to wrap things up, and at this point of the program, we get one of our favorite GPs to answer some of the questions that you've been posting on social media, and we want you to get the right information. So let's say hello to Dr. Marlon McKay. Thanks so much for joining us. Welcome again. Good to have you. Let's go straight into the questions, and let's see if we can answer as many as we can. And the first one is up on the screen now, and it goes like this. This is the question. Morning, today is my day 10. I don't know whether I should be happy or scared. The day determines so many things for me. I will have to report back to work after my 10 days, but I feel I can just stay at home until the end of this week just to fully recover from this trauma. I'm scared to go to the streets because I think I might get this thing again. It's been the hardest 10 days of my life with ups and downs. Your support has given me so much hope to fight for my life. Can I go and test again after 14 days of isolation? How do I know that I cannot infect other people? Currently, I have a minor cough, but feeling much better. Okay, a lot of questions there. Your thoughts?
Yeah, okay, so let's just take it through. So by day 10, on condition that you have no longer any severe symptoms, that you're not using anything for pain or fever, you are ready to be what you call de-isolated. In other words, it's safe now to come out of isolation on the basis that you are no longer infectious. So you cannot pass on the infection to anybody else. It may not necessarily mean that you are completely better. And I would recommend, if you're still a bit scared of coming out, your doctor can extend it for at least 14 days. So instead of the 10 days, just make it a few more days to get you through, and you can go back on Monday. In terms of getting the infection again, you have some degree of immunity now that you have just recovered. We don't know for how long. I would advise that you can get an antibody test, which can see that you still have some antibodies and therefore protect anything from 3 weeks, probably to about 3 months, that you are relatively safe. We do not advise that you be retested for COVID so soon, because the test may well show the PCR positive, which means the virus is still inside you, you are still shedding virus, but it's not enough to cause an infection. So it's not a good idea to have the test. It may just scare you thinking that you still have COVID. The recovery is based on the amount of days. So just take it easy. You are safe to go back to work. You won't get it now. It may still be in a few months' time, but don't stress about being retested.
Okay, let's go straight to the next question, which is, it's been 2.5 months since I had COVID. I had severe symptoms ever since that time. My body's not the same again health-wise. So one moment I'm fine, and then the next I'm not. This week I'm worse. I'm feeling weak, headaches, sinuses. I'm sweating intensely, yet I feel cold. My back up and downwards my spine, I'm chilled. My feet are painful almost every day. I don't know whether it's after effects of COVID or what. And that's from Mbali. Marlon?
Yes, so this is definitely the after effects of COVID. In fact, we're calling it post, which means after acute the infection, COVID. It's also known as now as long haul COVID. So this is where you've had COVID, you've been de-isolated, you've recovered in terms of your dates, but you still have these lingering symptoms. And this is, we're seeing it probably about between 10 and 30% of patients who have recovered. It can be in those who have had a mild infection, even a serious infection. And it's very alarming because you don't know, am I still infected? Do I still have it? How long is it going to last? And unfortunately, we don't really know. And so what we're doing is that you are not alone. It's okay. It's one day at a time. It may be worthwhile just to have a checkup with your GP to make sure that nothing new has happened, that your bloods are looking okay, that there's no super added infection.
Right.
Other than that, don't rush it. Rehabilitate very slowly.
Dr. Marlon, always great talking to you. Thanks so much. Have a great week.
Thank you for having me. Bye.
All right, that's GP Dr. Marlon McCain. That's where we say goodbye. Thanks very much indeed for joining us. Thanks to our guests and for you watching Health Talk. Don't forget to manage this pandemic, play safe, protect each other, stay at home, social distance, wash your hands and wear a mask. Good night, goodbye, ciao.
We don't get to spend much time together these days. I miss our early morning coffee, jamming to our favorite songs, and rushing from work to get to gym.
MyWay's new MyWheels at-home cover could save you up to 20%, because if you work from home, you should pay less.
How can you shoot an innocent child that doesn't know nothing? A child that got cerebral palsy, you still shoot him dead with a pump action.
4 of them. They found it like he's standing there.
As you can see his fingerprints here, he slipped down trying to get a grip. And then he fell underneath the truck.
We could see they wanted to cover up this thing. We saw it right there in the police station. They were not even prepared to answer us. The trust has completely been broken down.